Go ahead and turn on your video if you're presentable. Let's start with 3 ohms. You can go ahead and unmute. Ooh. Go ahead and unmute and do 3 ohms. Ooh. 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 You guys hearing me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Nobody unmuted except Angela. Cool. Didn't hear anybody toning. Okay, go ahead and turn on your video so we can meet you if you can. Right, so let's go around and have everybody introduce himself. Angelo, tell us where you are and about yourself.
Okay, my name is Angelo, and I live in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, near Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia. I'm a graduate of the Globe, and have my own sound therapy practice.
Cool. Okay, Barbara.
I am Barbara. I live in Miami Beach in Florida and I graduated from Globe last year. And I'm just building my sound healing therapy practice. I'm using the mat and tuning fork, and I'm really interested in getting to the medical field with it.
Uh-huh. Cool. Okay, Nina.
Hi, I'm Nina Freeman. I'm in Bellevue, Washington, and I'm just beginning my tuning fork sound therapy practice.
Oh, okay. Cool. Welcome. So let me give you, especially for those that are watching the video too, just a quick overview of what we're doing. Um, it's now been a couple of years since we started the Medical Sound Association, and it's really about uh, bringing sound into hospitals. So we don't talk too much about, source and spirit and aliens because that's not going to fly, right? Although, we can always sneak in little things like that. But it's really about figuring out how sound works physically, mentally, emotionally, so we can get it into hospitals and provide treatment plans for hospitals as well. Um, we've now got detailed treatment plans for a lot of different issues. If you go to Medical Sound Association and click on Integrative Sound, we've got plans for grief, anxiety, depression, PTSD, dementia, addiction, pain, autism, cancer, anger, sleep, schizophrenia, thyroid, traumatic brain injuries, and adrenals. And they're really detailed. For each of the issues, we've got overall uh, medical details. We've got the conceptual framework or approach as to how we're approaching that issue, which is really the most important part. Safety guidelines, which is really important for hospitals. Intake questions, the treatments other than sound, and homework that they could do. And so each one of these treatment plans is quite long, like 20, 20 to 30 pages long. Um, and um, they're really cool. They're very cool. So we've today what we're working on is we're going to be working on heart conditions and also talking about setting up a board to bring sound healing into hospitals, which could really make it so we get much more, many more sound healers into the integrative therapy departments of hospitals. And, um, so let me let's actually begin with the treatment plan for heart conditions. So started a little bit here. The main types of heart conditions are coronary heart disease. Oh, let me say one thing before we continue here. So what we normally do is in the meetings here, we'll go through each one of these sections one by one. So if you've got an idea for a sound treatment, hold that thought until we get to the sound treatment, right? So we're going to go through each section here one by one and focus on it individually. So we don't jump around. We're going to be very strict about staying on that subject. Okay, so here's the information. There's the main types of heart disease are coronary heart disease, angina, which is really seems to be just a pain, and unstable angina, which is actually worse, and then heart attack, heart failure, arrhythmia, valve disease, high blood pressure, which they say is not even a disease, but it can cause problems, and congenital heart conditions and inherited heart conditions. Looking over this, the main thing that I see is the difference between problems with the circulatory system versus the arrhythmia, which is the more the nervous system, right? Which then there's the actual parts of the heart, which may be muscles or nerves, like even the valves, right? They're not really, it could be still a problem of the system, but the valves are part of the heart itself, right? Maybe it's just the heart itself, which could be the muscles, could be the nerves, right? So when I look at this, it's really, I mean, high blood pressure is more, I'm thinking emotional, right? Just a reaction to stress, although that's probably not completely true, but that's one way we can approach it. So depending on the heart condition, we can look at the circulatory system, nervous system, or the heart itself, right? Or the emotional issues. So there's going to be different ways we're going to approach it based on what's going on. Now, as we'll talk about, we can get very general as we do in sound healing and approach it from just getting people to a place of peace and stillness, but we'll talk about that in a bit instead of getting very specific. So the conceptual framework that we're looking at here, the way we're going to approach this is, as always, peace is always good. And peace is stable, consistent tones, which includes vowels, crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, any instrument we're using, right? In sound healing, it's just about stable, consistent tones versus stable, consistent rhythms, which would be like a drum, right? Somebody have a comment there? Oh, Rod's got a really noisy. And got echo. You might turn on your echo cancellation, Rod. Okay. So we can also do melodies. We can do music, right? I mean, we can also play music. I mean, we could just play music back for getting people in the zone. But anyway, we can use sound to get them to peace or to a place of coherence. And that's really good for the heart, right? Because I would think that's like the best for the heart. So this is like really applicable. And then you can get very specific as to what music works. What, maybe love songs, right, would be the deal. Maybe certain love songs bring up issues, right? So maybe So, but the trick is to find out what music actually works for that person in detail. Um, then this is a list from addiction, so the notes in here aren't correct. I'll fix it later, but I just have the list here. So expressing emotions. I mean, it could easily be that emotions are stopped up, stuck emotions, right? And that could be causing the heart issue. It could be that they're not expressing themselves, right? It could be, the big one, of course, here is they're not able to handle stress. They don't have good stress techniques, right? And so emotions could be a component of here, of this. Getting them in their body. If you have any comments, just jump in here on any of this. Getting them in their body is really good because now we're getting, that's going to help the circulatory system and the nervous system. And that means, that could mean tuning forks on the body, right? Or sound table, sound lounge, physical vibration on the body. It could also mean big Tibetan bowls or even smaller Tibetan bowls on the body. Or a hand drum, frame drum, playing close to the body so you feel the physical vibration. Doing breath work can be really helpful. Again, it's kind of still focused on getting them back to peace. Right? Now, brainwave entrainment is, I think, really important here. Brainwave entrainment, especially where you find their note and tune the frequencies to them, is really good for the nervous system. I've had quite a few people who have come to me with arrhythmia, and I said, let's use binaural beats tuned to you and get your nervous system back in sync. Because the second you entrain the brain back to your natural rhythm and stable rhythm, well, the heart is synchronized with the brain, especially through the nervous system. The nervous system comes from the brain, right? So it's totally going to affect the stability of the electricity in the body. This is my idea. It's not been tested, but I think it would be really good to test this and see how effective it is for arrhythmia, because I would bet that it's really effective. All right. Now, if you're new to this, tuning, the way we do it is we actually play each of the 12 notes and 12 rhythms and find which one puts you in a place of peace. And then we give you a CD in delta, theta, alpha, and beta tuned precisely to you. So it's way better than any YouTube or apps, right? And Jeffrey Thompson actually does it even more detailed, where he actually plays every frequency and every rhythm while using flashing glasses, binaural beats, sound table, with a heart monitor hooked up to see when you go into a balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic. So this could be really cool, and it could actually help, because a lot of these heart issues could be part of the nervous system. It would really be interesting to see what percentage is nervous system and what percentage is circulatory system. Right. So this, I think, is really important. Now, there's a holding frequency class where we do 11 techniques for dealing with challenges and conflicts that could really help overcome stress. We sell that class, I mean, a video of the class for $30. So it's, letting go, letting things be, being in your body, being in your breath, being present, toning, allowing it to be, and welcoming your challenges once they're already there. Gratitude for your challenges, which is a little tricky sometimes. And then compassion and love and oneness. Those can reduce stress dramatically when you learn how to run each one of those in the midst of a challenge. But here's the most obvious thing of all. And it's kind of bizarre that it's not really addressed by doctors. And that is love. I would bet that as much as 80% of heart disease are based on lack of love. I would bet. I bet a good amount about that. Of course, there's no way to prove it yet. But I had panic attack 20 years ago, and I went into the other side. And I just saw that there's a complete epidemic of people not loving, much less loving yourself, right? So, I mean, if you go into the doctor for heart disease, they should say, how much love do you have in your life? Right? I mean, and how are we going to get it back in? Right? Because there's lots of techniques to do. Some that are really simple. Most basic is simply send the sound of love to your own heart. Right? I've only had 1 or 2 people that can't do this out of thousands, because I do this commonly in a treatment. I say, send a soft sound. First, this is what I actually do. First, I say, just send love to your own heart energetically. And most people can do it. It's like, okay, you guys can try it right now. Just send love to your own heart energetically. Okay, now add a sound to that. And you can unmute if you like. We even have the 3 to 6-year-olds in the classes we're doing online now. It's like little Krissa is like, can we do the sound of love? I'm like, yes. You want to lead it? And she's like, ooh, right? So you can send it to your own heart. You can also send the sound of love to others and the world if it's stressing you out. Right? Send love to everybody on the planet that's suffering. Right? Now, the ultimate and probably the number one cure is to run universal love through your whole system and heart. Most people don't have a clue how to do that. When I ask people, it's normally, I say, how many people have experienced universal love? In the classes, it's often more than a half, but generally in an open house or even in just general public, it's less than a third or a quarter. Actually, I just had an open house, and I had out of like 20 people, only two actually knew, maybe four actually had experienced universal love, and only two knew how to uh, access it at will. Well, this is major. You know, a couple of techniques. One is I had this psychic say, universal love comes through the thymus down into the heart. And so I started visualizing love coming into my thymus down into my heart. It took me about 7 years before I really got it down where I could run that love through there like this. You don't even have to do it with the sound. Right? Some people like bringing in universal love through the crown. I can feel it come through the crown because it's often, I think it actually comes through often through the pineal and pituitary gland. Down the spine, I feel it go all the way down the spine out my feet. So you could use the thymus or the crown. And just practice it until you really got it down. This is huge. I mean, really huge. If people can get it down. It's not easy for people that don't know how to do it. The other thing that I could mention more about is, as far as the music, is this is really critical. Develop a playlist, right? I mean, everybody's got their favorite love songs, but you got to be careful with those love songs because you might need to peel away the past. Because sometimes you can play a love song and then you just get really sad because that love's no longer there, right? And then you're in that sad place, right? You need to definitely have a playlist that only brings you into love. I can actually, I've got it down now where I can play a love song and just go to love, even if that love song has something to do with a person or there's a memory attached to it. But develop a playlist of love songs that don't bring you down. Right? And practice running love while listening to these songs. And realize that even the love in a loving relationship is divine love, right? As long as you don't go into the story or that lost thing, right? Because it's so easy to switch over to, oh, I don't have this love anymore. Well, goodness gracious, you got all the love in the world right here. Any comments about any of this? I've got a song by Sonatam Kawar. Actually, let me put it down here. Oh, I'll leave it here. That is called Heart of the Universe. That helps me get into universal love. Now, also, I mean, I've got my Unconditional Love CD. Maybe we'll listen to it in a bit, the short version. I've got my Water of Life CD, which is about bringing unconditional love into your heart. Those are good. Anybody else have any favorites?
I really love the unconditional love and water of life. You choose the two of them, which I work a lot with these two actually.
Yeah, they're really effective, especially Unconditional Love itself, CD. That's like, that one is so clear. You want to hear it? Let me play it. I'll play the 5-minute version for you. Okay, check this out. Okay, here we go. got the actual video that I put together of that as well, and the 30-minute version. And then there's so many interesting videos, I mean, to check out for unconditional love. You could probably search for universal love and find a whole another section. I mean, just put together a whole list of things that resonate with you. Could be really cool. So, YouTube search. And then books as well. We've got all these different books on unconditional love. That should be the prescription, right? Videos, unconditional love. Search for books. Okay. Cool. Now there's also the frequencies. There's the 1184 is the cymatics frequency. It's actually 5 frequencies that go with that. Here are the 5 frequencies. Look at the list. 1184 is the core one here in the center. But there's 991, 835, 1101, and 1124. Those are based on a Chinese tuning system around 1184, which is the core. And that sounds like this here. And you don't need to listen to this. You can play this on the heart with actual headphones. That's really cool. I mean, one day we'll have a range of frequencies for the heart. Right? And the tricky part here is this is what I think one of the biggest things we could do with the Medical Sound Association is have a range of frequencies for every part of the body. Every cell, every organ, every part of the body. Because everybody's a little bit different, but they're not going to be dramatically different. Right? But here's the problem. You've got the overall heart. You've got the materials of the heart, like the muscles, nerves, all the different, even the blood. And then you've got the cells, and then you've got even the molecular level of frequency. So we could get a range of frequencies for all these different levels. And ultimately have a device like the Raman spectroscopy, right, which is electron microscope, which will show the actual harmonic content of any cell scientifically. Right. So now we can tell precisely the frequencies of your heart. all the frequencies that make up your heart, right? And even if you got a heart disease, there's still going to be some of the parts of the heart, I would bet, that are still in harmony. And once you have this range of frequencies, you can do other parameters like EKG and EEG to see what your note is and then tune them to you, even if your heart is not doing well. That's where we're headed. Right. But it's interesting because you think, okay, if love is the problem, how much is this going to help? It'll help some. It will give you a little more time to learn love. Right? Give you a little more time to learn love. But that's really the deal. Especially if it's 80 to 90% of the problem. It's really funny. It's kind of wackadoodle that doctors don't put you on a trail of learning love if you have a heart disease. Because it seems so obvious that that's the main cause. Sure, there's other causes, but I would bet that's the main one. There's these other frequencies you can try. I don't know how they were, how people came up with them. Sometimes it's based on intuitives, but they're worth trying, right? Funny thing is they're all over the place. I mean, this is a binaural beat. This is a rhythm 6.15, and this is nobody agrees with anybody on anything. I mean, what are these frequencies? How did they come up with them? I mean, how many people did they test? And what level are they testing? Are they testing the overall heart? They're testing the materials, the cells, molecular. I mean, just quantum. What's going on here? That's what we should have. We should have a range for each one of these. And if somebody comes up with something else, put it in and explain where it came from. This is where we're headed. It seems just recently I just got really clear. That's like the number one thing that this association could do, is come up with range of frequencies for a human, for every organ, every cell, every thing. So 210 main types of cells, so we could at least find the range of frequencies for those 210 types of cells. Any thoughts or comments on any of this?
Well, hello, David,
Hey,
and everyone else. Yeah, I would think just having the equipment and the protocol for how to get the measurements, and if the association or we as individuals figure out a way to get funding for the equipment, and there could even be like regional. If some people are able to get equipment, if those resources are made available to others in their area in some kind of way, basically any way to increase the input data. In order for us to keep up with AI, we've got to have the same kind of training data. And that's what it really comes down to, is gathering the data. So my question would be, I've kind of dabbed into the technologies that are emerging for determining frequency of cells, and there's actually some newer technology as well. I can't name it off the top of my head, but I saw it recently. But just having access to the technologies that would allow us as practitioners to actually be able to get those numbers and that data. Um, and so if the association could be the hub of that information, even if there's no central funding source, how can you go about getting funding, or how can you gain access to this technology in your area? Like, I'm in an area with lots of universities. I haven't tried this, but I would assume, if you're in areas with universities, trying to get some kind of cooperation or access, and yeah, hospitals. I actually have just kind of barely poked at the hospitals in the area, but not the universities really. But yeah, that's my thoughts right now. So I'll let somebody else speak.
Cool. Well, looks like we've got funding to do whatever we want and so the first step, once we have the funding, is to set up a research team to figure out what devices to get, right? I'm thinking the Raman spectroscopy is going to be one of the first ones, but this won't actually find frequencies inside the body. It has to be, that's actually in a dish, right? So we need to find a unit that will actually find frequencies in the body, and there are devices like that out there. Even I know there's one that even will find it at the molecular level. So that's going to be the first step with the funding we have coming in. Um, Also, the other thing, we are now halfway through programming an online sound therapy center. Let me show it to you actually. Uh, don't tell anybody though, because we haven't launched it yet. So let's see. Um, and let's see. So it's soundtreatmentcenter.com is what's going to be the actual site. Here's the mock-up so far.
Wow, sounds really amazing. Congratulations, David.
I'm sorry?
This sounds really, really interesting, actually, this online healing
Uh,
center. I was
uh
just saying, like, congratulations to come up with this.
Cool. So it's for getting a one-on-one treatment, and then we've got there'll be anybody can sign up as a practitioner. Really good sound quality. We're reprogramming Zoom sound, so we're adding in compressors, and it's going to be the best. And anybody that's a practitioner has to take a little bit of training on and have good mics and such, and learn about miking, right? And then we've got information on how sound works, and we're going to have free sessions for people in need. And so the cool thing though is we're programming in an actual, oh, that's unusual. We're programming in an actual section where you can actually have the practitioner can get a feedback device like a EKG, cheap EKG, or a full-on medical device, and we'll be able to see what's going on with that person physiologically while you're doing the actual sound healing treatment on them in real time. And then we're going to have tracking, so we can actually track and see what treatments are the best for different issues. So it's basically a research lab online, which is really cool. So that's coming up too. That will help. We're looking at doing a research center here in the San Francisco Bay Area, but yeah, there's to get to sync up with hospitals once we're really underway, I think is really going to be the deal, because they've got so much equipment. They're totally open to having research project done, you know, there. So that's very cool. Um, as far as safety guidelines, I mean, the main thing we know is no sound if someone is too fragile or out of surgery. Just had surgery, right? In fact, I think we'd say a couple of weeks after surgery at least. Um, I mean, there could be some issues around specific. I mean, basically, the main thing is if someone is really having pain or heart attack, right? Call 911. I mean, get them to the doctor. Right? Don't be afraid to get serious help. Right? If someone has a pacemaker, um, I don't think it's. I've come to think it's not as big a deal as because, but I would turn down the vibration on a sound table. Because the problem with pacemakers is electromagnetics. You don't want to screw them up electromagnetically, and sound is not going to do that, right? I mean, people listen to music all the time on pacemakers. It's not. I don't think it's huge. Any specific intake questions? You could ask about what drugs, right?
I've had people or clients who are extremely sensitive to sound, and uh, because I'm not, it was at first it was like, okay, wow, but I'm as being a practitioner, I have to be sensitive to them, and I've had at least three people like that where they could handle the sound, but it had to be if it was going to get intense, it had to be gradual, very gradual, and basically they really didn't like intense sound. And I worked with one person on the spectrum. You know, they were kind of so those questions. Are you on the spectrum? Do you have any awareness of sound sensitivity? Um,
Yep. Cool. Yep. Um, can't think of any more specific questions for intake. Um, we could do a whole round of questions around love. How much love in your life? Um, tell us about what um, your experience of love is like. Past love. Right. Can you access universal love? Uh, have you experienced universal love? Cool. Okay. Couple other things that we can always do, and that is bring in source. You know, do the whole thing of working with spirit and access spirit, which is, yeah. Um, different. Okay. Uh, any other treatments you can think of? I think that's about it. Oh, I got a song here called Heart. I'll play a second of it. Another song from with Nutri-Energetics frequencies and you notice it's got the heartbeat in it. Um, I was at a concert years ago where they started out, I think I was stoned or something, right? And they showed this huge visual of a heart beating. It was just boom, boom. It was before the concert even started. Boom, boom, right? Boom, boom. And it was palpable how effective that heart beating with the large PA going boom, boom, right, as well, was. I mean, it's just immediately, it's like I could feel my heart wanting to synchronize with it. So I think there's something powerful in that, especially if you could get a visual of a heart beating in time with a person's natural rhythm of their heart, right? At least in the range, right? It's tricky because, it's hard to synchronize an actual heart rate to a person. You can find the average of the heart rate, but since the heart goes up and down in tempo, and when you're in the zone, it goes up and down in a smooth S curve, right? So to actually map that S curve to the person is a little tricky, right? I think so. You normally do a very stable rhythm, which is an average of the heart rate. We have done some research and now found out that the heart, the average of the heart rhythm is an octave of the brain when you're in the zone. So that's cool. But to even include visuals of the heartbeat, or just play on a drum, play a heartbeat on a drum and watch closely and try different tempos until you get the right tempo for that person. Right. Let's put that under brainwave entrainment. There we go. Okay. That's about all I have for this. Any other thoughts before we move on? Here's the main thing. If they can't access universal love, have them send love to their own heart and say, look, you've got all the love in the world. Often, you could also resort to grief, right? Maybe their problem is they haven't grieved, or they're grieving all the time, right? Because of a loss of someone they loved. People die of a broken heart all the time. It's like my mother died 2 months after my father died, right? It's really common. People die of a broken heart, right? So it could be a whole grief function. Go to gratitude of ultimately. Thank you for that love I had. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Any other comments before we move on? I didn't say hi, Karen.
Hi, David.
Cool. Okay. So let me stop recording so I don't have to do editing later. I'm going to stop and then record again.
And David, is it okay that I'm here? I just thought it sounded like such an interesting topic. I was like, oh my God, I want to learn this stuff. But I don't know if it's just a board meeting or.
No, so it's open to anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.